Good day, guys. So in this lesson we are going to be learning about function, but we're also going to be learning about events, and then we are going to be joining our HTML code and our JavaScript code together. So first of all, what is an event? Well, an event is like something that occurs that triggers a JavaScript code. So whenever that thing occurs, a JavaScript code is triggered. So let's go ahead and let me show you some of them. Let's say I have an input here in my HTML ID. Let's call it anything. Let's call it data. We can give it any name, and then let me say value. Okay, let's just leave it as data for now, right? So this is my ID. Now I'm going to specify an event. Now in JavaScript there are many kinds of events. Let me go ahead and just list them, a few for you to see. We have the onChange, we have the onClick, we have the on mouse over, we have onload, and we have some other kinds of events. These are mainly the ones that are mostly used. So now I'm going to use an event here. I'm going to say onChange, and I'm going to say alert. All right, you just changed the value here. Okay, onChange usually works with a select, so let's go ahead and use a select instead. I'm going to have my select, let's say option option 1, option 1, let's create another option 2. Let's call this one 2. Then we'll go ahead and just copy that, create a third option. Let's say option 3, right? Good. Option 3. Okay, so this ID and the event is going to come here to our select, so that I can use the onChange. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and run the code, run that, and as you can see, our select input is there. If I change it to 2, as you can see, me changing the value now has changed the value. Said you just changed the value here. So whenever I change what is inside here, my JavaScript code will run. That I specify for it to run with that event. As you can see, it has changed again because I changed it again. And so that's your onChange event. So you see that when I run on onChange something here, it ran this JavaScript code alert. You can even have an onClick event. onClick. Okay, let me go ahead and spell that correctly. Click equal to, save that, and then I'll come and run my code, refresh, and if you can, as you see, whenever I click here now, okay, let me see. Okay, let me go back and check what may be happening. I did not spell the click well. Yeah. Save that again, then I come here and not there. Okay, and then I refresh, I click, as you can see, me just clicking it has alerted. Why? Because I've changed it from unchanged, so I don't have to change it first. As soon as I click it, it just alerts. And so these are how event listeners work. On mouse over, it's like whenever you just hover over the element on mouse over, save that, run. Save that, run it, refresh. Now whenever I just hover over the element, as you can see, I did not click anything. All I did was to hover over it with my mouse, and it's so that's how event listeners work. When something is done in your HTML code, the event lister listens to make sure that, okay, this person just hovered over this element, and then the code here runs. And then unload on the other hand just means that whenever the element is ready, do what you want it to do. So you will notice that it will just alert as soon as I refresh. Okay, let me check that. Okay, unload usually works with the page. It usually works with the page and checks whenever the page is ready. It just does what is on your unload. And as you can see, as soon as the page is loaded, it just shows. That's how unload works. So now for our lesson today, I'm going to be showing you how you can combine your HTML and your JavaScript, and we're going to be using functions to do that. So let's go ahead and create a function. First of all, I'm going to create my function here, and this is how you create your function. You first start with function, the keyword function, then the name of your function. I'll call my function let's say data processing. Now it's not a must for you to name your function like this, but just for as a tradition, most programmers, when they are naming their function, they prefer to use small letter for the first letter, lowercase, and then use uppercase for the second word. Because in a function, when naming a function, you cannot put space. Putting spaces will generate an error, so you either need to combine them together or use an underscore, but most programmers prefer to write it like this. So you now open your parenthesis and close it, and then you now open your curly bracket, which is where the code of your function will occur. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an input. Now you're going to see how we'll combine and get data from HTML. More so, get data directly from the user. So I'll create an input here, and then I'll say input ID is equal to fname, which is first name, and then yeah, we're done with that. I'll create another input. Notice that I'm just using the very basic HTML codes. This one, the ID will be age, and then I'll create yet another input, and then input. This one, the type will be submit. Or let me just make this one a button directly. A button, okay. Yes, I'll give my button the ID of submit. Okay, let me clean that. I'll give it the ID of submit, and then let me name it enter. Save that. By the time I go back, okay, let me style it just a little. I'll say first name, I'll say age. Now mind you, this is just for tutorial purposes. The form is going to really look bare and scanty. Okay, as you can see, this is our form. We're asking for your first name, for your age, and then we're asking you to enter. Let me go ahead and just break the form down into a more comprehensible state. Okay, so we're done there. So let me just run that again so I'll see our form. Okay, so let me add one more. I see the designer in me is trying to make sure it looks it doesn't look as, but let's just keep moving. I think we'll just manage it like that, but this is just for learning purposes. And so now what we are doing is I'm going to be asking the user to put in his first name and his age. So when he puts in his first name and his age, he's going to click this button here so that he can submit. So now we are going to code this button in such a way that when it is clicked, our function will run. So what I'll do is I'll use the onClick event. OnClick is equal to the name of my function, which is data processing, inside parentheses. So I'll just put my data processing, and then I'll put my open and close bracket to specify it's a function. So now what happens basically here is that whenever I click this button now, this function runs. Whenever I click this button, this function runs. So that's number one that we're going to do. Number two, we want to get, okay, hold on. Number two, we want to get whatever data is imputed here and whatever data is imputed here. And I'm going to show you how we do it with JavaScript. So the first thing we're going to do is to create a variable where we'll store our data. And then let's call this one variable. I'll call it first name. Remember, your variable can be any name as long as it follows the naming convention. First name is equal to, now I'm going to use data.getElement by ID, and we spoke about this in the previous lesson. So data.getElement by ID, and I told you that the reason why we are using ID here is because ID is what we use to identify our element, our tags. Assuming I had used class, I would have used getElement by class. So getElement by ID, the name of the, then you specify the name of the ID you want to get. In this case, I want to get fname first. Fname, remember that is the name of our ID here, fname. And then now I want to get, when the user puts in a value inside our text field, like when he writes in something here, let's say he writes John, I want to get this John that he's writing, or she writes Sandra, I want to get this Sandra that she's writing. So what I'll do is document.getElement by ID, get the element, and then get the value, get what is written in the element dot value, and then I'm going to store it inside here called first name. I'm going to create another variable again. This time I'll name this one age, and we're going to do the same thing, data.getElement by ID. Then this ID is what I'm getting here, this ID, age, and then I'll get the specific value of that age, right? So now I'm getting my, when the user imputes his first name, I'm getting it here and I'm getting it here. He imputes his first name here, and then I get it here using this ID as a reference. The same thing that happens with this age. When he puts in his age, I get it here using this ID as a reference. And whenever he clicks this button, I use onClick, run this function that I've created here. This is a function that has been created here. This is a function. This is your keyword to specify you are creating a function. This is the name of your function, and you can give it any name, in which case today I'm giving mine the name data processing. And inside here is there, if there's any value you want to pass into your function, this is what you use. Any parentheses, any parameters you want to pass into your functions, this is where you use. So let's go ahead and keep it simple. I'm going to go ahead and just, now I've gotten the first name and the age. I'm now going to say if, remember our if statement, if age is greater or equal to 18, then alert. Alert. You can own a car. Save that, and let's go ahead and check our code. Else, let me use the else statement here. Else alert something else. Alert, you are still too young to own a car. Save that, and then I'm going to go ahead and run my code to see it. Refresh. You must always refresh so that what you have edited will take effect. Then I'll name this John and give him an age of 16. And I'll press enter. Okay, so now let's try to find out what is the issue. So most times in JavaScript, when you're using JavaScript, one way to find out your error or your whatever is wrong with your code is by using inspect. Here you just right click, most browsers have this, and you come to inspect, and then you come here to console. Okay, on cut reference data is not defined, so as you can see my error here is being shown at line 20. This html.html is the name of my file and telling me the line where the error is coming from. So I'll go back and check. Okay, in line 20, what could be the issue? It said data is not defined. Okay, as you can see here, I'm writing data, but I'm supposed to write document. It's supposed to be document.getElement by ID. And so that's one way you can find your error with JavaScript, because most times, like you saw, JavaScript, if there's an error in JavaScript, it will not necessarily alert you that there's an error in JavaScript. What happens is sometimes it will just not run, and if you don't have a way of finding out what the error is, it can be very frustrating, because you'll be wondering where is the error coming from without knowing that. But using the console in the browser is very easy to find the error. So I'm going to go ahead and just refresh again, leave the console on, put in my details back, let's say John, and then I'll put age as 16 as well again, and enter. And as you can see, now it's running. You are still too young to own a car. Why? Because John is 16. If I put John as 18 and I run, you see you can own a car. So what exactly is happening here? Well, what is happening is I created my HTML tags here, and I gave them an ID. This one has the ID of fname, this one has the ID of age. Then I created a button and I gave it the ID of submit. But then I now use an event in the button that says whenever the button is clicked, find where this function is in my JavaScript code and run it. And so this is the function in my JavaScript code, as you can see. And what it does is that it first gets the value that is here inside this first name, gets the value that is inside this age tag, and then it now checks the variable to see if it is compliant with what we want. So if age is greater than or equal to 18, tell him you can own a car, else he cannot own a car. And so basically that's how functions work. When you are creating a function, like I said, use the keyword function, use the name, use any name you want for your function. This parenthesis here I used to just pass parameters into your function, and whatever is in between these two curly brackets is the beginning and the end of your function. So my function starts from here and it ends here.